You wake up before sunrise. Not because your alarm went off. Not because your phone buzzed. Not because your neighbor decided that 6 a.m. was the perfect time to test a leaf blower. You wake up because someone expects you to be disciplined, alert, physically ready, morally serious, and preferably not embarrassing your family name before breakfast. Congratulations, you are a samurai for one day, and right away there is a problem. You are probably not going to enjoy this. Because when people imagine being a samurai, they usually picture the cool parts, the armor, the sword, the dramatic pose under cherry blossoms, the deep stare into the distance, as if every thought in your head is about honor, death, and the wind. What they do not picture is waking up cold, hungry, stiff, stressed, and realizing your entire day is basically a long test of whether you can behave properly, while everything hurts. Could you survive one day as a samurai? Technically, maybe. Emotionally, that depends on how well you handle discomfort, discipline, pressure, and clothing that seems personally designed to make sitting complicated. First, you would not wake up and ease into the morning with coffee, scrolling, and 15 minutes of pretending you are about to get up. A samurai household ran on routine. Your day would begin early, and your first job would be to present yourself properly. Not casually. Not, I just woke up and this is my authentic self. Properly. Your hair, clothing, posture, manners, and behavior all mattered. Status mattered. Self-control mattered. Even before anything dramatic happened, you would already be judged. And if you are the kind of person who needs 3 attempts to leave the house because you forgot your keys, your water bottle, and then your reason for existing, this may be a difficult start. The samurai were a warrior class, but they were also part of a strict social order. You were not just living your own life. You were representing your lord, your family, your rank, and your name. So your morning begins with discipline. You would wash, dress, prepare yourself, and eat something simple. Not a giant heroic feast. Not a plate stacked with meat like a fantasy warrior. More likely rice, miso soup, pickled vegetables, maybe fish or soy-based foods depending on your rank, region, and time period. Basically, breakfast would be healthy, simple, and deeply uninterested in your personal cravings. If you were expecting pancakes, bacon, and a motivational smoothie, history has bad news. Your food is not there to entertain you. It is there to keep you functioning. And that is one of the first lessons of samurai life. Comfort was not the point. Function was the point. Then comes training. And this is where modern people start losing points quickly. Samurai training was not just about swinging a sword in a cool way for 10 seconds and then posing for the thumbnail. It could involve archery, horsemanship, spear work, swordsmanship, physical conditioning, strategy, and depending on the era, firearms. It also involved mental discipline, manners, reading, writing, administration, and sometimes poetry or philosophy. So if you imagined being a samurai as one long action scene, the reality is more annoying. Yes, you might train with weapons, but you might also have to study documents. A warrior who can cut a man down but cannot handle paperwork is still going to have a difficult career. During peaceful periods, especially in the Edo era, many samurai were not constantly fighting battles. Some became bureaucrats, officials, teachers, administrators, or guards, which means the average day might involve less glorious combat and more sitting, reading, writing, reporting, waiting, and maintaining the appearance of dignity. Imagine wearing swords and still having office work. That is not a movie, that is just a very intense Monday. But even if your day was not full of battle, it was still full of expectations. You had to move through the world with control. You could not just yell because you were tired. You could not complain loudly because your soup was boring. You could not have a small emotional collapse because your sandals were uncomfortable. A samurai was expected to show restraint, and restraint is easy when everything is going well. It is much harder when you are hungry, your legs hurt, your superior is being impossible, and you still have to look like a statue carved from discipline. Now let us talk about clothing. Because surviving as a samurai was not just about the sword. Sometimes it was about surviving the outfit. Depending on the situation, you might wear formal clothing, practical clothing, or armor. And samurai armor, while beautifully designed, was not exactly modern sportswear. It could be heavy, restrictive, hot, and complicated. Full armor could weigh around 30 kilograms. It took time to put on properly, often with help. So before you even reach the battlefield, you are already in a relationship with discomfort. Modern people complain when jeans feel slightly tight after lunch. Now imagine trying to move, sit, ride, fight, sweat, breathe, and remain honorable inside a portable wooden and metal anxiety cage. And remember, there is no air conditioning, no sports drink, no moisture-wicking fabric, no emergency snack in your pocket, unless you planned very carefully. If you had to wear armor for part of the day, you would quickly learn that movies are kind. Movies show the dramatic moment when the armor goes on. They do not show the moment when you realize you need to go to the bathroom. And that is when history becomes personal. Because samurai life was full of basic human problems that dramatic stories usually ignore. Hunger did not disappear because you carried a sword. Exhaustion did not politely step aside for honor. Sickness still found people in armor. The body still demanded bathrooms at the worst possible moments. Timing could still be awkward, embarrassing, and deeply inconvenient. Under the helmet, under the discipline, under the legend, there was still a human being. Honor does not cancel digestion. This might be the biggest shock of becoming a samurai for a day. You are not suddenly above human needs. You are just expected to manage those needs while looking composed. And then there is the social pressure. A samurai lived in a world where reputation mattered deeply. Shame was powerful. Failure was not just personal. It could reflect on your family and your lord. Your behavior could have consequences beyond yourself. That means you would need to think before speaking, think before acting, think before reacting, think before showing fear, anger, frustration, or weakness. For modern people, this is exhausting. We are used to expressing ourselves, complaining, venting, sending messages like, "I literally cannot deal with this today." A samurai did not have that luxury. There was no group chat called retainers who are secretly overwhelmed. At least if there was, it was probably written in very formal calligraphy and immediately used as evidence against someone. By midday, you may already be struggling. You have woken early, eaten a simple meal, trained or worked, followed strict manners, controlled your face, controlled your words, and possibly carried weapons around as a constant reminder that your life comes with responsibilities sharper than your attitude, and the day is not over. Depending on your position, you might have duties at a castle, administrative responsibilities, guard service, travel, meetings, training, or household obligations. A lower-ranking samurai might live with real financial stress. Not every samurai was rich. Some had status but not much money, which is one of the most uncomfortable combinations in human history. It is like being expected to look important while quietly wondering how expensive dinner is going to be. Again, not exactly the fantasy. Then there is the mental side. Samurai culture placed enormous emphasis on readiness for death. Not in the cartoonish way people sometimes imagine, where every samurai happily wanted to die at breakfast, but in the sense that a warrior was supposed to prepare the mind for danger, loss, and the possibility that life could end suddenly. This sounds dramatic until you realize what it actually means for your day. It means you are expected to carry yourself as someone who can face fear, not someone who never feels fear. Someone who does not let fear make the decision. And that is harder than it sounds, because your body does not care that you have read a code of conduct. If danger appears, your heart rate rises, your hands may shake, your mouth may go dry, your thoughts may scatter like frightened pigeons. The samurai were not magical, fearless beings. They trained because fear existed. They developed rituals, ideas, habits, and discipline because the human body is not naturally calm when sharp objects are nearby. So if your one day as a samurai includes any actual danger, the question is not whether you are brave in theory. The question is whether you can still move correctly when your body is screaming, absolutely not. Most of us like to imagine we would be courageous, but many of us lose emotional stability when the Wi-Fi is slow. So a battlefield may be ambitious. By the evening, you would probably be tired in a way that modern rest does not easily fix. Not just physically tired, socially tired, mentally tired, spiritually tired. The kind of tired where someone asks you a simple question and you stare into the distance like a war poem, and your day still ends with more discipline. You do not just collapse onto a couch and watch 3 hours of something you call background noise. Your household, your duties, your rank, and your responsibilities still exist. Maybe you practice. Maybe you read. Maybe you prepare for tomorrow. Maybe you eat another simple meal and pretend you are not thinking about snacks that will not be invented for several hundred years. And then, finally, you sleep. Not in a climate-controlled bedroom with blackout curtains, a memory foam mattress, and a device that plays ocean sounds because apparently silence is now too aggressive. You sleep in the world you live in, a world of wooden buildings, seasonal weather, insects, duties, danger, hierarchy, and uncertainty. And if you do manage to fall asleep, congratulations. You have survived one day as a samurai. But would you want to do it again tomorrow? That is the real question. Because surviving one day is one thing. Living inside that system for years is something else entirely. The armor, the sword, and the status may look impressive from far away. But up close, samurai life was not just glory. It was routine, discomfort, pressure, discipline, and constant awareness of your place in the world. It was waking up early when you were tired, eating simply when you wanted more, training when your body hurt, controlling your face when you were frustrated, maintaining honor when life was not honorable enough to make it easy, and doing all of this while carrying the weight of your name, your family, your lord, and sometimes actual armor. So could you survive one day as a samurai? Probably, if nothing too terrible happened. Could you survive the boredom, the discipline, the rules, the discomfort, the social pressure, the fear, the food, the clothing, the expectations, and the complete lack of modern bathrooms? That is where the answer becomes less confident. The truth is, becoming a samurai for one day would not make you feel like a movie hero. It would make you realize how much of history was not dramatic at all, difficult, repetitive, uncomfortable, and deeply human. And maybe that is what makes it more interesting. Because the real samurai were not legends floating above ordinary life. They were people with bodies, duties, fears, routines, hunger, pride, stress, and probably at least one morning where they thought, very privately, I do not want to do this today, but they did it anyway. And that, more than the sword, may be the part we still recognize. If you want more strange, human, and uncomfortable truths about samurai life, click subscribe, because there are many more interesting videos coming. And now I want to know, if you had to live one full day as a samurai, which part would break you first?